My goal for today is to show you guys angles of a Blackhawk that maybe you've never seen before. They've been in movies, they've been all over the place. There's lots of footage of them out there, but we'll see what we can do to create something special just for you. So let's go. Ladies and gentlemen, do you recognize this seat? You should, because this is my favorite seat. This is the seat of my Blackhawk, and it's time for a Blackhawk update video. I know it's been a minute since you guys have seen it on the channel, and that's because it's been up here in Idaho getting some maintenance done, and we've been busy, and there's just been a lot of stuff going on. So it's kind of been not on the back burner, just hasn't been something we've been able to do, but today's the day. So here we are, ready to take you guys on a journey of picking up my Blackhawk for maintenance, talking about some of the maintenance programs that go into this, talking about my training that I still have to finish to be able to be licensed to fly this thing myself, and pretty much anything and everything else Blackhawk related. Plus, we're going to be flying from Timberline helicopters in Sandpoint, Idaho, down to my shop in Bountiful, Utah, and the scenery is going to be beautiful. Okay, so as part of our trip up here to Timberline helicopters, obviously they've been doing a bunch of maintenance on the helicopter, kind of getting everything ready. When we flew it back from Kentucky, that was basically just the flight to move it from one location to the next. Now that it's based in Salt Lake City, there's a bunch of other paperwork and stuff that we had to do to be able to get it legal to fly. As I mentioned before, this is a very complex flight program as far as paperwork goes, because technically the Blackhawk is a military helicopter, right? So I'm taking a piece of military equipment away from the military, and I'm trying to say, hey, I want to use this in the civilian world for leisure, private stuff, work, whatever I want to do with it. So that's what Timberline has done, is they've created what's called this restricted type certificate, which means that Timberline is now the one responsible for the maintenance and the operations of this aircraft and the way that it works. On my airworthiness certificate, that says these are all of our conditions and limitations. So there are 33 different limitations: where we can fly, when we can fly, how many people we can fly, what we have to do as far as paperwork goes. And this has been the biggest question mark for us so far, because we've been trying to figure out what we can actually do with this thing, right? There have been so many questions. Like, I have a question like, hey, I want to fly from here to here with this many people on board. Can I do it? Now it's spelled out very clearly. We know exactly what we can do. Got a list of all the air shows and events that we can fly to over the year. And that brings me to my next point, which is we're getting ready to fly at home. Before we do that, though, I want to show you guys just how intense some of the maintenance that goes into these things is. They just have they have a helicopter here. They just barely pulled in for what's called a PMI. It's a phase inspection. These are the inspections that I had to do on my Blackhawk, and you can see they tear the whole thing down. They've got scaffolding, they've got walkways, and they've got like 10 people working on it. Like, these things are monsters. So since we didn't get to show you some of that stuff down in Kentucky when it got done by Joe, we can show you here and now to help you understand kind of just how intense that process is. Guys, I would like you to meet my friend Tyson. He is the Executive Director of General Operations here at Timberline Helicopters. Did I get it right?
Got it.
It's a hell of a title.
Yep.
It's a hell of a title because it's a hell of a job, because you do a lot.
I do.
Tyson's going to show us just kind of a light overview of what an inspection. This is the PMI 1?
PMI 1, yeah. So this is going through the 480 PMI 1 inspection. So right now we just put it into inspection yesterday. So as you can see, it's getting torn down. It's getting ready to be fully inspected. So we'll go through the whole structural inspection, airframe inspection, and then go through the maintenance side of things, working on the head, the spindles, the upper deck, the lower deck, and then the fuel system, going through and replacing everything that's required in the PMI, and then fixing any discrepancies that we find during the inspection.
So that is kind of the heart and soul of a Blackhawk. Up front, you're seeing a lot of different hydraulic components. Those are hydraulic packs. Those are basically redundant hydraulics, because if you don't have those hydraulics, it's just like an excavator or a tractor. If you try to control a tractor without hydraulics, you're not gonna be able to move the stick. These things are the same way. If you lose all hydraulics, you're going to the ground. Like, that's it. So these are the same engines that are in my Blackhawk. It's a 701D, 1,500 horsepower each, 3,000 total. And you can see, just look at that monster transmission in there. That thing is beefy. Yeah. So this right here, overhauled. It's $800,000 engine. That's not brand new. It's been gone through. It's like new because it's, all new parts and stuff like that, but $800,000 per engine. That is more than I paid for the whole helicopter.
$100,000 per engine.
Yep. Yeah.
So this Blackhawk has something really cool on it. Every helicopter struggles with the tail rotor performance, meaning the aerodynamics between that tail rotor back there trying to counteract the main rotor, and then all the air that flows around the tail sometimes gets a little bit complicated, and you lose a lot of power with the way the air flows back here. So I just found out that the Blackhawk now has an approved kit, which is basically called it's a fast fin and a strake kit. What that does is essentially takes the rotor wash that's coming off the main rotor blades, and it basically cleans it up right here, right? Best way to put it, kind of cleans it up right here, and gets rid of kind of a turbulent area, which creates a kind of a low pressure spot right here, which allows you to have more tail rotor authority because there's not as much resistance, essentially. So it's got these strakes, these vertical ones that direct the air the way that it needs to go. It's got this big kind of rounded bubble. You see, mine doesn't have this. Mine has just a regular, drive shaft cover, because under there you've got the drive shaft coming from the main transmission into the tail rotor. To do, take your buckle, put it around your waist, click that, let's go. Well, my friends, we're home. We made it. It was a little bit of a bumpy flight just because it was so windy today. We had a tailwind, we had a headwind, we had all sorts of winds, but it was nice. And it reminded me of how much I love this freaking helicopter. Blackhawks are just the coolest. I mean, there's literally nothing like it. I wish I could explain to you guys. I've flown a lot of cool helicopters, but nothing touches this. I mean, it's just a completely different experience. So now that we have it back in Salt Lake, it's going to be here for good. I mean, it's always been here for good, but I had to go up there for the maintenance and stuff. So any big maintenance and stuff we'll take up to Idaho. The smaller stuff we'll do down here. Just hope you have sweet dreams of the Blackhawk like I do, because literally it's all I can think about. It's the best. You guys ready for this? Things are about to get sexy. What I mean by that is we obviously got the Blackhawk home yesterday, got it stuffed in the hangar, great flight home. And now today is a perfect day to do some testing. Now I'm gonna show you what that means. Since this helicopter falls in the experimental category, we're allowed to do flight testing of different parts and components as long as we do it within the parameters of this certificate. A good example of that would be GoPros, cameras. But every mod that we do to this thing requires 10 hours of testing according to our airworthiness certificate. So what we're gonna do right now is start our 10-hour test period. Here comes a buddy. This is Joe, by the way. Joe is a new friend of mine who has a sweet A-star who is gonna be joining us tonight. What this means is we're gonna mount a bunch of cameras, 2 or 3 I think, to the helicopter. And we're gonna do it in the proper way. We're not just gonna, so for example, you're never gonna see one of these suction cup mounts on the outside of this helicopter. The reason for that is we go 150 miles an hour, no, 200 miles an hour in this thing, and that would just rip right off, and that's a huge hazard because it gets sucked up in the rotor system. Lots of bad news. Even these kinds of mounts, we're not gonna be using. We're gonna be using a lot of industrial, like metal mounts, stuff that is like legit. A good example of that would be right over here on the front. we are going to be running a GoPro 360. So we have a plate that is fabricated to be able to hold the 360, and it basically allows the 360 to sit up here. Now we're not going to fly at high speeds with that because we want to be careful, but all these mounts are screwed on, they're secured on, they're tethered on, they're not going anywhere. We got to say hello to Joe real quick. Guys, this is my new friend Joe Metzger, and when I say new friend, I literally just was introduced to him today. And he has a helicopter and I have a helicopter, and that makes us friends. I don't even know if he's a good person or not, but he has a helicopter. So anyways, Joe is up here because I told him we're going for a ride in the Blackhawk and going to do some testing, and we might be doing some future stuff with Joe because he's now in the helicopter business. Okay, little distraction there. Joe showing up. He's got a really good looking helicopter. So it gets some really cool footage. We're going to start signing off those 10 hours of testing so that once those 10 hours are done, then we can fly with these components whenever we want, because we're going to like prove that they're good and they're not going to fall off. One thing I'll mention is this GoPro 360 mount. We will not fly with this at high speeds. The other mounts I'll show you. We've got a clamp mount up on the steps up by the tail rotor, and that is a solid metal clamp mount. Couldn't fail, not gonna fail. Essentially, this is the process. So I told you guys I wanted to show you the ins and outs and how all this stuff works, and it's definitely a lot. Tyson, who was just here from the National Guard, he's my buddy who I've hired to maintain this for me, or just do the inspections and stuff like that, the light stuff. So he just finished the inspection, the cameras are mounted, and we're gonna head out west and get some sexy shots. We're also gonna get some awesome drone shots. We've got a new buddy here, Nathan McBride, drone pilot. I'd never met him before, but Eric behind the camera here said he's legit and he has some legit equipment. So my goal for today is to show you guys and myself angles of a Blackhawk that maybe have never been seen before. They've been in movies, they've been all over the place. There's lots of footage of them out there, but we'll see what we can do to create something special just for you and for me. So let's go. APU's coming on.
All right, you are headed right towards the drone. You're still very far off. The drone is kind of by us.
Fly with caution.
I'm descending slowly. I'm gonna wrap towards the mountains. Yeah, stay on your right side. Holy shit, that's stressful.
All right, guys, that is a wrap. Some pretty awesome shots, huh? That's just scratching the surface of what we're gonna be able to get with this thing. Unfortunately, we were trying to make it to the Bonneville Salt Flats, but a massive storm blew in, like out of nowhere. It wasn't on the radar until like it just showed up. And there was like 40 knot winds, which are brutal. The Blackhawk doesn't mind them. It just goes no matter how rough the weather is, but it's not as fun to fly when it's that rough. So we didn't make it all the way. We made it out to kind of the middle of the Great Salt Lake, got those shots out there. All of our camera mounts, everything held up perfectly, exactly the way we hoped we would. And we got, you know, 2-3 hours of test time on them, and we have about 7 more to go before we can actually fly with those, you know, other locations. So I'm happy with it. Hopefully you guys are happy with it. You like what you saw. Again, we're experimenting with all sorts of different angles. We want to show you guys the best of the best while also being safe and compliant. So with that said, this Blackhawk video is a wrap. Next video, I'm going to be showing you guys what my actual training looks like the ground school, preparing for the test so I can get my license to finally have the type rating to fly that thing. So that might be the next video for the Blackhawk, or might hit you guys with a surprise. I don't know. All I know is my Blackhawk's home and all I want to do is fly it. So hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for the support.